The alert from China to the World Health Organization came just over 5 weeks ago at the end of December. An unknown virus triggering pneumonia-like symptoms in the city of Wuhan.
And by the 9th of January, Chinese health authorities had released the genome sequence of this mysterious virus. And experts think that, like SARS, it could transmit across species.
Well, this has prompted some experts to call this latest outbreak a much-needed wake-up call for how we manage global health. Lok Wei-Su takes a look.
China's president has called the virus the devil epidemic. Given the cost it has inflicted on human life and livelihoods, the need to demonize is understandable. But a virus is just genetic code in a protein casing, needing a host on which it can feed and in which it can replicate before leaping into another host. Coronaviruses, named for the corona or crown-like attachments visible under an electron microscope, are considered zoonotic viruses, meaning they can move between species. At least 10 outbreaks in the last century have been spillovers from animals to humans. This is why, for many experts, the latest outbreak comes as no surprise. 75% of new human diseases originate in animals, while more than 60% of known infectious human diseases also come from animals. Not all coronaviruses are deadly to humans, but when they are, it's often this movement across species that unleashes that potent power to harm, and is all to do with finding the right receptor.
If this was a bird virus, and this is a bird cell, so a bird cell has got the receptor for the bird virus, so the virus encounters the cell, it locks in, gets in, starts stealing the food and nutrients that it needs, and then it can grow and reproduce. If, on the other hand, the bird virus encounters a human cell, now it goes to the human cell, and the human cell does not have a receptor for the bird virus, so there's no way it can get in, no matter how hard it tries. The problem comes when there's a mutation. Now, when the mutation occurs, the surface of the protein may change. And then all of a sudden, this bird virus becomes something which can get into the human cell. And then when it gets into the human cell has never seen this bird virus before. So it's got no immunity to it. And then this bird virus can come in and make the human really, really sick.
We know for SARS that the civet cats were important. Bats are often, ironically, are a reservoir of many viruses, from Ebola to some coronaviruses. It can be camels, like we see in the Middle East. For influenza, it's often birds, poultry, it can be swine. It means that in order to find out what the risks are for us humans in terms of new infections, we also have to follow very carefully the viruses that are circulating in nature, in animals. When an infection, a disease, has an animal reservoir, it's obvious we cannot eradicate it. Eradicating it would be like smallpox, which is, has disappeared. But only we humans were the reservoir and could be infected. But if the reservoir are, let's say, a certain type of bats, we can't eradicate all the bats. So it will come back over and over again. And in our modern times, we will probably see an acceleration of the frequency of these emerging infections.
So the occurrence of infection is not just a perpetual risk. It's a risk that recurs with ever greater frequency. Here in Singapore, it's easy to forget we share our living spaces with an assortment of animals, from insects to birds to bats. They eat here, they sleep here, they excrete here. When animals as a source of disease is the norm rather than the anomaly, what adjustments should we be making?
Stop messing with nature, stop intruding into the animal's territory. Unfortunately, the reality is that it's going to happen. The increasing appetite for consumption, for malls, for things like that, and it's going to happen. And if it does happen, what we've got to do is to mitigate the impact. We've got to be aware of what's going on in the world around us, and not just in the buildings, but also amongst the animals.
In our field, the big one will be a big influenza virus epidemic, that is, with a virus that is completely different from all the previous ones. Like we had about 100 years ago with the so-called Spanish flu, which killed 50 million people at least, more than in the whole of World War I. At a time when there were only 1.9 billion people on the planet, there was no air travel, everything had to go by boat or by rail and so on, by horse. So it means that we are becoming more vulnerable, and it will happen again. So we have to be prepared for that big one also.
And looking beyond the current outbreak, human survival must entail continuously meeting and overcoming the challenge of big one after big one, and remembering human beings are just one animal amidst other animals in a shared environment.